Hello, guys, and welcome back to the final episode of our public speaking series that's under the project I Create, brought to you by Swan Livelihood. In the last video, we talked about the business communications and what should be taken care of and what should not be done while communicating in corporates. And today it's just an extension of the previous topic where we're going to talk about various communication technology platforms that are used in business communications and how actually we can utilize it to the most of its advantage. So without further ado, let's move to our first slide. So this is basically a very basic slide. It talks about the benefits of using communication tools, which we already know about. So let's see what it states here. First is increase employee engagement. So once we use communication tools, it increases employee engagement because employees engage with each other even if they are set geographic in a geographical different area. Second is better productivity, of course. So once we are using communication tools, we have a better productivity because again we are able to communicate better, especially with the people who are not physically present with us. Third is improved work relationships. So once we communicate with each other, of course the relationships build up in a good way. Fourth would be ability to automate. So, once it basically stresses on the tools that we use. So, once we use the communication tools, it increases our ability to, automate the process. So, for example, we have Outlook calendars where all the process is automated. So basically once all we have to do is just create a meeting, and once it's the time for the meeting, it automatically pops up so that we don't have to physically send invitations again and again. Next would be give others feedback, of course. So communication not only includes just transferring information to and fro, but also transferring feedbacks. So this is another benefit of using communication tool. The final that is stated here is share knowledge. So communication again is basically giving out information and receiving information as well. So it can be in form of knowledge also. So once we are, especially like for example in the trainings, mentoring, meetings, what basically we do is either we provide information, we provide knowledge, or give feedback. So these are the basic areas why we communicate with each other. So, moving on, now let's talk about how technology has changed business communication. So, everyone knows now, especially after the pandemic, the business has transformed from the using the physical marketing tools, not only marketing, all the physical tools, to the tools that we use right now that are virtual. Some of the major examples of the shift is first would be the PR campaigns. So earlier, everyone used to go to cinema halls, and basically earlier as well it was virtual, but it was basically YouTube ads and television ads, and people used to go to various variety shows to promote. However, during the pandemic, this PR campaign and marketing campaign has drastically shifted. And now, what they're doing is, we see ads everywhere, especially they make TikTok reels and, Instagram ads, Facebook ads, Google ads. So the PR campaigns has transformed itself totally. Online reputation management has come into picture. So now we specially have PR teams which handle the reputation. So you must have heard, like It's not very popular in India, however it's building its stance, but it's really popular in Western countries and other Asian countries, where people Google their names and see their reputation indices. People see the how I mean how many people have searched for their words, and is it for a good um, purpose or for a negative publicity. So of course online reputation management has come into picture, and not only has it come into picture, but it has taken a huge role and importance in the PR campaign itself. Next would be social media engagement, interaction, and customer satisfaction. The very recent example would be Brahmastra, the recent release. Everyone knows what have been going on in Bollywood these days. Let's not go deeper into it, to the political aspects. However, we see that the Bollywood movies have not been, performing so well quite recently. However, the only reason that Brahmastra has been able to still hold its place and get its collection is mainly because of the PR campaign that it has done, whether positive or negative. So when we talk about marketing, or it can be positive or negative marketing. For example, let's say Maggie. So we all have heard of the scandal that Maggie or the Johnsons and Johnsons was there into. For example, let's talk about Maggie. So we found that it has led into it, and everyone boycotted it. And it was not only boycotted vastly, but it was also a word of mouth. For example, if X is a person and he does not know about this news, however, if I am a regular user of Mackie and I got to know that it has led into it, of course I'm gonna call X and tell him, oh, do you know you love Maggie and it has lead in it, you should stop eating it. So this is how negative publicity also affects, and similarly, positive publicity is there. So no, there's no use of giving examples because everyone knows about it. So social media engagement we have now, even now, for example, Bollywood stars are not only into acting. However, we see that they are switching to other platforms as well. For example, they're making reels constantly so that they get more ads and views and followers, so that they're able to earn more because of each post that they make, because they are able to engage their audience. Similarly, they are moving to YouTube videos as well, because again it's another mode of earning. So do you see how huge this whole virtual or AI environment has been and has come into picture within like 1.5 and 2 years of time? Next, about PR campaigns is securing online mentions. Again, using hashtags, Google AdWords, searching their names on search indices, and the rankings, and interviews to help maintaining a positive reputation, of course. So interviews have always been like a major go-to place for all the businesses and Bollywood star. Why I am focusing more on the Bollywood department, it's basically because these are actors and actresses, and movie field is basically where PR campaigns are mostly used for, and it's an easy example for me to connect or explain it to the audience so that they grasp it easier. So whenever there is some negative publicity going on, there is always an instant interview that they ask for, and and then they use this interview in a positive way to clear out all the negative air that has been around. So this is how PR campaigns has been um, transformed or shifted completely from physical to the virtual using the technology in communication. Second example would be marketing and advertising. So most of the newcomers would not be really knowing about the difference between PR campaigns and marketing and advertisement. So let me give an overall idea about it. So marketing and advertising is basically, advertising is a form of marketing. However, PR is also a kind of includes marketing as well. However, it is not. It still is different from marketing. So PR basically. Um, it's public relations, so it maintains relationship with the public, to the viewers, to the audience. However, marketing is just like we are, marketing ourselves so that more and more people know about it, and that's it. And marketing, uh, and advertising is one of the way how people market themselves or their product or service that they are catering. So under marketing and advertising, aside from social media, blogs, and YouTube, podcasts are also very famous delivery methods to both social media messages and advertise your business, of course. Now, now that we have spent this entire pandemic looking at our screens, so it has really bored the customers. Like most of the people not really are any longer interested in watching anything, watching interviews, watching videos. So what we've shifted into is Spotify or Kindle, let's say, or audio podcasts, where we can hear, and we don't have to actually use our heads and eyes that much. So this is how the marketing has transformed itself. So it has not only used the virtual platforms like social media, blogs, and YouTube. However, they have also started using podcasts. Next is a pretty technical term, so let's not go deeper into it, but still, just for the sake of discussing it, internal communication. Now, the PR campaigns in marketing and advertising is like a public affair, but internal communication is basically that's not really shared with the outer public. It's just the stakeholders or maybe the internal community. For example, within a company or within a team. So first would be cloud storage. So basically what companies do is they store everything. So even if I am an individual working in a corporate, I am also storing my files directly to the cloud storage for um, to maintain the record and to keep the record safe and sound. And it's not really only business. When we say, let's talk about our Apple cloud storage. So we as personal individual as well use cloud storage to store our personal information. That's internal communication that we do not want to share with the outer public. Next would be video sharing. Internal communication may it includes video sharing as well. For example, WhatsApp. Or I have a private account and I want to share videos. I want to, DM memes, or make reels and just share it to the people who are within the group. So this is an example of video sharing as a part of internal communication. The last that we'll be talking about is collaboration and screen sharing. So right now what I'm doing is I am collaborating with Swan Livelihood under the project I create. So this is a part of collaboration. Screen sharing is what exactly I'm doing right now. I'm sharing my screen and I'm sharing the details, all the knowledge that I have to the people. It can be internally, it can be externally as well. Moving on, ways to communicate through technology in a business or in corporates. There are various ways. So one would be the basic physical way, where we meet people face to face and communicate on one-on-one basis. However, especially after and during the pandemic, it was not really possible. So now many other modes have also come into picture. The first and the foremost being remote conferencing and virtual meetings. So virtual meeting is basically like what I am doing right now is I am remotely conferencing with all of the viewers. We have virtual meetings like Zoom, Google Meet, etc. Emails, of course, we talked about this in the last video as well. So let's not go deep into it. Next would be ICT tools. Let's just we are gonna touch base at it in the next slide as well. But just to give it an example, ICT is basically information communication technology. So it has been in picture a lot. So it was in picture earlier as well, especially in all the BPOs and KPOs and RPOs, where basically the things in the tasks included outsourcing, and we needed to communicate with our clients that were overseas. So there we use communication technology and the CRM. CRM is the customer resource management. So these are basically tools that we manage our data, and that allows us to communicate and reach out to the clients or customers or colleagues that are not physically present. So all this Zoom, Google Meet, and WhatsApp, these are a very basic form of ICTs, but we have other tools as well that are solely used by corporates and corporates only. And the last example would be radio frequency identification tags. So, just to give you a brief example of what it basically means, so these are like the ID or identification tags. These are the tags that use the radio frequencies to, locate where our goods are. So, it basically is mainly, used for physical um, storage of goods and stock. For example, a very basic example would be the air tags that we use. So whenever we have to fly somewhere, of course, everyone knows that once we fly, use air transport, there is a huge risk of our luggage being dislocated, or maybe we're never gonna see our luggage again. So now air tags come into picture. So air tags is basically a product of Apple, where we can put the air tags in the luggage, and through our phones or the Apple devices we will be able to track where our luggage is. So this, how does this technology actually works is it uses the radio frequency, and the radio frequency is basically similar to all the ships, submarines, and airplanes use. So let's not dig deeper into it. Moving on to the next, let's now discuss what ICT basically is and all the components. So if I read what's written here, let's see. The term information and communication technology is generally accepted to mean all technologies that combined allow people and organizations to interact in the digital world. So by digital world, I mean virtually. So major examples or the components of the ICT would be internet access, of course, our geophiles, the portable devices which we can use to carry wherever we want. And it gives us the experience of carrying a Wi-Fi. That's not actually a Wi-Fi, but it gives the experience of it, and it's portable as well. Or we have Wi-Fi's, we have portable Wi-Fi's like we have on our phones as well. So these are basically the internet accesses, and it is a part of communication technology. Next would be cloud computing. Cloud computing is like a huge term, so I'll just explain what it basically means. Is cloud, everything we do right now, especially the people or the companies that work in SaaS is basically software as a service. So a company that basically provides software as their product, or rather service, basically use the cloud computing to stock all of its data and the softwares, so that we have it in bulk. One of the examples, basic example of cloud computing can be like, not exactly that, but it can be like our blockchains or Web3. So it's basically, not exactly, but it's basically the cloud that's managing the entire virtual or cryptocurrencies. Next would be software. Software is basically that cannot be touched. It can only be seen. It's a service. We have studied it in our we have studied it in our communication in or information technology classes. So let's move on. Hardware is basically something that we can touch. Hardware can be a computer, laptop, iPads, MacBooks, phones, etc. Next is transactions. Transactions. Now, by transactions, I do not mean physical currencies. Transactions, since we're talking about the components of information and communication technology, transactions are basically virtual transaction. Like we have Google Pay, we have net banking, we have cryptos, we have um, exchanged in the dark webs. So all these are the transactions that take place virtually. Next would be communication technology, basically iMessaging, WhatsApp, Zoom, Slack, whatnot. We will discuss about this in future. Next is data. Again, data is also a part of is one of the components of the information and communication technology. Data basically, or as you can see in the picture as well, it's stored in the binary forms of 0 and 1, and we've studied it in when we were in schools as well. So the data is also a part of communicate information and communication technology. Why? Because data is another name for information. And data, when I talk about data, it's basically the data that's there on our systems. So that is technology. So information technology. So we have discussed about all the components of ICT. It's a huge, huge term, and it includes a lot. So I think if you know this much, you will be, wherever you go, and if someone is discussing about it, you'll at least know what they're talking about, and you will not make a fool of yourself, as what's ITC and what's cloud computing, because in today's time these are the very, very, very important terms that you should know about. It's okay if you're not a pro at it. Even I'm not a pro at it, but you should always be aware of all these terms in today's term. Next is how remote communication is different from the in-person communications. Of course, as I discussed in basically every session, that after COVID struck, virtual has been the new go-to. However, we were not really, especially the corporates and the individuals, were not really prepared for it, because everyone used to come to office, and working from home was never a thing, never ever a thing. No one could have even imagined, especially in India, that we'll be working from home. And once we started doing it, now there's no going back. Now almost everyone does not want to go back to office and see all those faces and communicate, because it's not at all easy, I would say, and comfortable. So now we're back to our shells, and now communicating on one-on-one and physical basis has been really, really tough. It has been tough for me as well. So how is actually the remote communication different from the in-person communication? So remote communication entirely relies on technology in order to bridge the distance in the communication, or the gap in the communication. Because of course, when we are sitting at our homes, there's no way that we can connect, if not virtually, if not using technology. No verbal signs or body language. We discussed in our first and third session that body language plays a huge, huge, huge role in communicating. Even if you're not good at communicating, or even if you are saying something that's typically very rude, however, you are sugarcoating it with your body language and the verbal signs. then it totally changes the way that the other person would perceive it. And now that we cannot see the other person, and we are just chatting, or even if we are just hearing our voices, it's really really difficult to perceive exactly what this other person is wanting to say, and there is a huge chance of miscommunication. Limits for you to get your message across, of course. If basic example, let's not talk about communication here, just talk about ICT. So the very very basic example would be when I'm making a transaction online, and let's say my server is down and I don't have any other bank that I use for my transactions. So what is gonna happen is it just shuts the door for your transaction to go across. Similarly, if the platform that you're using is down for a while, like Zoom sometimes goes down for a while, there is no way that you can communicate with the people for that blackout time. So it's limits, sometimes it's limits for your messages to go across to the other person. Discussion sometimes can quickly escalate into misinterpretation and misunderstandings. Of course, once we are, as I mentioned, we are virtually working, we are typing all the things. So if we do not use, we don't hear what how the other person is saying something, or how he's using the body language, there is a huge chance that it will escalate very quickly, because you have to be very fluent with the language and witty with the words that you're using if you are using talking virtually or remotely. Because if you're not witty with your words and great with your explanations, then there is of course a huge chance of escalating the issue into misinterpretation and miscommunication. Now there was a survey that was scheduled. So it says a state of remote report 2020. It's pretty old survey. However, it was just the time, basically the time when the COVID struck, and when they asked that what's their biggest struggle was working remotely, the huge portion, as you can see in the blue section, is collaboration and communication. Because once you cannot collaborate and communicate, everything that you're doing is basically stuck and it's stopped, and it really really hinders the work that you're doing, and it hinders the productivity and this satisfaction indices as well. Now, the most commonly used communication tools for remote teams to get their work done. Now, it's solely and solely for the huge organization. The smaller organization basically still use Zoom to communicate. Um, However, and they have their WhatsApp channels as well. So they are basically used by the smaller organizations. However, huge big organizations use Ring Central Video, Slack, Zoom, that's for businesses, Skype, Flock, Join.me, Jira is used a lot. Yeah, so that's it. So these are some of the examples, and I have not used a lot of it. I've just used Slack, Zoom, Skype, and Jira, and I've seen other people using it as well for the clients that I work with. However, this data I have collected from several websites that I visited, just to see, which how many companies use which communication tool. Next would be an essential guide to effective communication while working from home. So this is basically a guide I have discussed of how to effectively communicate. Now this slide typically talks about how effectively we can communicate while working from home. So first would be define goals, expectations, and boundaries. So we know how to uh, define goals, And define expectations. Define expectation basically means we know that by the end of the this conversation, this is the basically the goal that I want to reach, and I have set clear expectations to the other party as well. That see, this is my goal, and I'm setting my expectations clear from the other party as well. That this, uh, we have to get this done. Boundaries would be, we have of course to set up certain boundaries. Boundaries can be in terms of personal boundaries, the space, or it can be in terms of the goals as well. For example, if I talk about personal boundaries, it can be like I have to only communicate in English, or I have to only communicate formally, don't have to go informal, or boundaries in terms of work could be like I don't have to work overtime, I don't have to work post my 8 or 9 hour shift or work during breaks. Setting goal specific boundaries or expectation specific boundaries would be like I have a client reaches out for something and it's not really something that you can do, and or it's not under the scope of the product, or the client is being really really rude. So that is where the goal or expectation specific boundaries come into picture, that you have to set the boundaries that and there, that I am there to help you, this is not possible, or I'm there to help you but I'm not going to take your nonsense. So leverage communication tools. Leverage basically means put something to a better use. So leverage is if I have something, I use it for my better, um, let's say, communication. So some using something to doing something in a better way. So I have the communication tool, like we all have Instagram, we all have um, LinkedIn, but how do we leverage it to our advantage is basically what we have to know. Remember the crucial three C's, the crucial three C's we have to really remember. And the three C's are content, communication, and consistency. So we have to really know about the content that we are portraying. We have to be consistent, and we have to effectively communicate the content continuously. Next is remember, okay, have regular check-ins. Now, once we have communicated, once we have set our goals and boundaries, and we are just working, there is no point of just working and setting expectations and boundaries, and being consistent and communicating and taking care of our content if we are not really stopping and having a look or a regular check-in as to where I was and where I have been. So, just for example, we have annual meetings or regular team meetings just to see how well the team is performing. So, it's really important that we regularly check our progress. Next would be say no to hyperconnectivity. So once we are talking about communication, it's really, as I mentioned, important to set boundaries. So we have to make sure that it's okay to be informal, it's okay to be formal. However, especially when we are in a virtual setting or in a physical setting as well, we have to take care that we are not really hyper connecting. So by hyper connecting, we basically means it's really important to be engaged in casual chit chat, like the next point says, and it's really important to be formal as well at some points. However, we have to maintain a certain balance in it. We have to constrain ourselves from excessively over explaining ourselves, or excessively providing too much information, or TMI, that we basically is the basically terms that we use. So say no to hyperconnectivity. Do not forget to engage in casual chit chat. I know that I mentioned in our previous sessions that there is no point in being. You should not really be informal in a corporate setting, but of course it's really important. By informal I always mean, we don't have to basically depend on them, like, yeah, only these are my friends now, and I say everything to them, and I tell them everything, and there's no life behind after my corporate friends. That is a big no. However, casual chit chatting is really important, because yeah, everyone does the work, and you can be really important, or part of your team and the best performer of your team. However, if you are not really that good with the people and so basically chit chatting is a part of people management as well. So in case you want to be a candidate for the next promotion, you have to be in the public eye, of course, and people should know that, yeah, she not only is she great in her work, but she is also great at communicating with people. She connects with people too well, and everyone likes it. Of course, when there would be a time for the promotion, or something like that, you will always be called and you would always be thought of. So casual chit chatting is really important in corporates. However, again, never hyper connect. Final thoughts. So it's always important to share the final thoughts and feedback. I have said it several times already. It's very important, to tell our final thoughts, whether we are at an interview, at a meeting, or anyway. Uh, and again, if we don't have something good to say, it's always better to keep quiet. And if even if we are in a position that we have to actually be a little rude, because it's the business requirement and we do have to share the bad feedback as well, always make sure that you do it in private, never in front of anyone. Great. With this, we come to an end of the session. It has been really, really amazing. The whole 4 week session was really informative, and I tried to cover as much as I could. And I really hope that you enjoyed it. As I said, this was the end of this public speaking series, but I will certainly be back with a new topic and a new series sometime soon under the same project I create, brought to you by Swan Livelihood. Thank you so much for being such a patient listener, and thank you so much for the amazing response that you have all given us. So I really hope to see you next time. And till then, take care and enjoy the other videos that we brought for you. Thank you and bye bye.